to the Cello Museum Podcast, where we explore the past, present, and future of the cello. I'm Dr. Brenda Neece, curator of the Cello Museum. In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Inbal Megiddo in New Zealand to discuss recording the Bach Suites, taking risks, and finding one's own voice in music.
You don't just jump into doing a Bach recording. I've lived with the suites for a very long time. I felt like I was ready to record them as much as one can. That said, it also took a while to record them because COVID intervened. I recorded the first batch of 3 pre-COVID, and then we had a break for a couple of years. We came back to record the next 3, realized we couldn't get the sound to match the first recording. So we went back and re-recorded everything. It was actually fantastic. Silver lining. I got to live with them a little bit longer and do another whole take of them. It was a journey.
I love in your liner notes the statement that you made about the Bach Suites, that you said, like life itself, they reveal new facets with each return, changing as we change, growing as we grow. In this way, they become not just music to perform, but companions on life's path, offering both mirror and window, reflection and vision as we make our own journey through the movements of existence. Is there a specific suite or part of the suites, the preludes, for example, that have evolved more than others as you move through life with these works?
That phrase is definitely how I feel about them. Every time I sit down and play them, I discover something new. We're not the same person every day. So every time I play them, they're going to be different. It's one of the things that is very nerve-wracking about recording them, because I can't say this is exactly how I see Bach always. This is how I saw Bach at that particular moment. I talk about how I see the suites as a life journey, starting from the innocence of youth in the first one, all the way through a life cycle. As I get further along in the suites, they start becoming more part of you. The 4th suite, for example, is like your adulthood with busy life and children and all sorts of things happening. And when I'm 20 or even 30, I'm thinking abstractly. And then you actually move through those life phases, and then it really resonates. I think I'm deep within Suite 4 at the moment with life. Life is incredibly busy, and every once in a while we sit down and we really relish it and see the beauty in the busyness. And I know that is something that I will miss once I get to my Suite 5 life cycle. Life is glorious and the suites are glorious.
You mentioned that one of your greatest mentors, Aldo Parisot, encouraged each student to find an individual and authentic voice. As you made this recording, where did you most feel his influence? Or were there particular movements or moments, or was it more overall ethos guiding this project?
Parisot was a remarkable teacher and mentor, exactly because of that. He wasn't trying to teach people how to play something specifically. He was trying to teach you to find yourself. The Bach Suites are the epitome of that, because we have so little instruction in actually how to perform them, that it really gives you that freedom of trying to find your voice. And so it's funny, his biggest influence was actually making me sound not like him. And what he would always say was that he didn't want his students to sound like each other, and that he didn't want them to sound like many Parisots. That would have been his worst nightmare. Giving the students the confidence to try to discover that, and to discover it with knowledge. He would actually encourage us to do something crazy, but we did our research. I know the history of the suites. I know the history of every piece of music that I'm playing. But in the end, it's your own authentic voice that has to come through. One of the things that he would say would be free but in tempo. And that's something that really comes through in the Bach, especially in the preludes. Every one of the other movements is a dance. And there has to be a relationship to that dance. There's freedom there. But there is a pulse, and we have to find that pulse also in the prelude. He hated metronomes. The pulse had to come from inside. But within that, everything can be free. So it sounds like it's a contradiction, but it really allows you to improvise. Improvisation can't happen without structure. The preludes give you a little bit of freedom. The sarabands also. Those movements really give you a little bit of space to do some soul searching and really explore time and silence, which are both really important parts of the music. Another quote that I really like from Parisot is that when he approaches a piece, you can't treat the composer as God. The composer is human. And when he would look at a piece of music, his job is not to recreate the composer's vision, but it's actually to create something even greater. I think some people would find that sacrilegious, and some people find it inspiring. I fall into the latter category. When I was doing my research, I wrote about Parisot's teaching methods, and he had this argument with Starker. He told me a story where he went to listen to Starker play. He happened to be in London. Starker was playing in the Netherlands, the Bach Suites, and he heard him play. And then Starker came and heard Parisot play as well. And Starker said to Parisot, "Why do you play the Bach Suites so free?" And Parisot said to him, "Why do you play them so square?" So that was the eternal argument between them. And I think Starker also said that for him, and I think I quote this in my liner notes as well, he's looking forward to going to heaven and meeting Bach, where he can ask him what he really meant and what he intended with the suites. For me, I think the sublime thing about them is that we don't know, and that actually gives us the freedom to explore and try to expand boundaries and really find our own voice there.
Composition and performance work together to have a conversation. Even when the composer is gone, it's this conversation that continues, and that's what I think is so magical about getting to play this music and to listen to this music. That brings me to another question. A critic advised another female cellist not to record the suites. She was told, well, there are already too many versions. How would you have responded?
So I made these recordings really, first of all, we don't really make recordings to make money these days. And so this recording, it is a personal journey. And so this journey allowed me to give a voice to my own perspective. And my own perspective doesn't exist. And like I said, what I did then, it probably would be completely different now. I would see that as very closed-minded. First of all, we haven't discovered everything in the suites. There's more to be said. And hearing diverse voices, continuing to make those suites relevant and part of our current zeitgeist. Every era has a different way of approaching them, so I think it would be such a shame. I don't say that mine is definitive in any way, not even definitive for me. My interpretation, it was where I was in that particular time. I'm excited to hear different approaches and different things that people are finding in them. There are so many beautiful interpretations, some that are approaching it from historically informed perspectives, using instruments from the time period, but there could be a magnificent recording made on guitar or electric guitar or trombone, who knows? Bach wouldn't have had access to those instruments to know maybe that is actually what he would have preferred. I like trying to experiment. I like trying to go to the edge, to the extreme, because that's where we discover new things. The suites are living and breathing things. They come with us. They are 300 years old. We need to have new perspectives and new voices heard. So I think that's what I would tell him. I'm assuming it was a him.
Yes, it was. But the conversation continues. As you said, today with someone, it might change in the same way the Bach recording, if you were to record in 5 years, 10 years, tomorrow. But that is the beauty of the Bach Suites. Yo-Yo Ma recorded them 3 times, and Anna Bilsma recorded them twice. The first recording I heard as a kid was a box set of LPs of Casals, and I fell in love with the suites then.
They asked him to make an edition, and he said he wouldn't do that, so we can't actually put into stone Bach's music, Bach's words. So as you said, there's so many recordings already, but I don't think we'll ever find the perfect one. Each time we listen to them, we might find a different one that we enjoy as well. If you look at Yo-Yo Ma's recordings and Anna Bilsma, you can certainly hear the difference there as well, right? From one to the next. So that's pretty amazing. That's what makes those suites amazing. That freedom.
Well, and I do think some recordings I've heard I love and some I do not love. And I'm really enjoying listening to yours. And for anyone who has not already listened to these recordings, I encourage you to go and listen.
They're available on all the streaming sites, higher quality versions, available for purchase. But thank you. It's what I try to do. It's that freedom within the structure and telling a story through them. And that's how we have to approach all of music. There is no one right way of playing it, of playing anything. We need to find our own path. That's one of the things that Parisot really instilled in me and in his students, and it's also what I try to instill in my own. I can give them some guidance, but they really have to find their own voice, and that's how they interpret things, and it's actually their own sound as well. That's what I try to bring across in the suites.
Well, you certainly did. And when I'm listening to your recordings, you're making me think. And I love that. I don't have a glassy-eyed experience listening to them. They're thought-provoking and beautiful and unique. I took a Bach class in college, and the professor said that each prelude is like the hero's journey. So the hero starts off and then is changed and then returns home, as an old fencing master of mine used to say, the same, only different. So the hero is the same hero, but different.
You're listening to the Cello Museum Podcast. I'm Dr. Brenda Neece, and today I'm speaking with Dr. Inbal Megiddo in New Zealand about recording the Bach Suites.
You recorded these suites at Stella, a converted chapel owned by Peter Jackson. And in our last interview, you told Cello Museum readers that recording the suites can feel as epic as battling for Middle Earth, and one does not simply walk into a Bach suite. How did recording in this space shape your sound and your experience?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been here in New Zealand for 15 years. Before coming here, Lord of the Rings was the way that I knew New Zealand. There are two things that I'll say. So first of all, that chapel is such an amazing place. It was a converted chapel. They've made it so that you have perfect acoustics for Bach. It's sitting right on top of a cliff overlooking the harbor of Wellington. There's a lot of inspiration in that sense as well. Recording the suites is definitely epic. There's 6 of them. I tried to do them without too many breaks. There's improvisation happening. The breaths are not always in the same place if I play the same thing twice. So we had to record them in big chunks and not too much editing. It doesn't make life very easy for the producers. The other thing I was going to say was that New Zealand is a unique place. We are down at the bottom of the world, very far away from everyone. There is definitely a Kiwi spirit, a frontier spirit. We have to take risks, especially if you think 100 years ago down here, if you had a part of a car that doesn't work, and it's still kind of the same, I have to say. You can't just get one from another place quickly and definitely not cheaply. So you end up having to be very resilient and very independent and creative in the end, to try to find ways of doing things. So I think there's a bit of that also when I'm approaching this project, sort of that adventurous spirit. And then New Zealand's reputation is the scenery here is absolutely gorgeous. There is a connection to nature. There's a respect for nature. New Zealand is known for the birds we have here. There are some really crazy birds that have evolved that can't fly, for example. The kiwi is one of them, but there are several others. There's a parrot that's too heavy to fly, so it climbs and then falls down. But all sorts of things. For example, the School of Music where I teach, our Maori name is Ikoki, which means the dawn chorus. So it's that connection, again, to the birds, the song of the birds in the morning. The silence here is more silent. The song of the birds is inspiring, and so there is a whole vast array of colors and feelings. It gives it an adventurous and respect for nature, which really is also a part of this music. It's a connection to the earth and our place in this world as well. We live within it, we're part of it, but we're also a very small part of it as well. I think there's all of that within the suites as well.
I would like to think Bach is a very important voice within that, even though humanity might be a small part of our world. I would hope, and I'm so glad your recording is out there to be one of the important voices that people hear.
Well, thank you. I think Bach, it's the epitome of all of it, of all that we do. It's the humanity and humanity's place in the world. I really do see that in the suites. It's grounding, and when you play them, it really gives you the connection to the earth and connection to the rest of humanity. And hopefully, when people listen to my recording, they can feel that connection and get lost in those visions in that world and in the beauty of the world.
You said you had a beautiful view from up there as you recorded, too, instead of being stuck in a windowless space.
I can send you some pictures of Wellington Harbour from up there so people can actually see that. And they should come visit New Zealand because it really is amazing.
I've unfortunately never been to New Zealand to either hear Bach or the birds. So maybe one day.
Please do. It'd be lovely to have you down here. I have a cello festival that I run down here, Cellophonia. When I got here, I started an annual festival. We have cellists coming from all over New Zealand. So a lot of really beautiful music, a lot of great cellists. And I always have international artists who come and join as well. We've had over 100 people in the cello ensemble. And that's the best kind of music, isn't it? Including some very sacrilegious Bach Suites. I think one of the most gorgeous recordings is the Yale cellos recording the Sixth Suite Sarabande. Parisot's phrasing and breathing, that is an influence in the way I do things as well. With a whole cello ensemble playing it, it brings out things that we really can't when it's just one. People should go and look for that as well.
Continuing with the Bach Suite recording, what advice would you give to young cellists or not so young cellists embarking on a new journey with the Bach Suites, maybe first time, maybe studying again? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, get a score that doesn't have any markings on it. Even if we think we're not paying attention to what's written, and if there's some slurs in there and things like that, we start following them. Again, this is one of the things that make the suites both mysterious and sublime. The fact that there is no original manuscript in Bach's hand. We have the Anna Magdalena copy, but they're all copies. And as we all know, they're also imperfect copies. We really don't know Bach's intention except for the Fifth Suite, the lute version. But again, there's freedom there. So take a score that doesn't have any markings on it. We don't know dynamics. And then start, you can do this away from the instrument, try to figure out where we breathe. I think that's one of the harder things to figure out because you have this full page of notes. There's no rests except for in a couple of the preludes. And even those rests, how long really are they? What is that feeling of the silence within the music? Silence is a very important part too. Start thinking about where you're breathing. Where is a comma? Where do you have a period? If you start thinking about it as a story, as syntax, where does a paragraph end? Where is your hero battling something and becoming something new? Figure out the story that you have to tell in each one of them. And it doesn't have to be incredibly profound. It's just something that you connect with and it'll be profound for you. It doesn't have to be super complicated story. But we do go through a journey when we play them. And you also have to be prepared to do that. Not every day are you prepared to actually go through an emotional transformation and journey. So long story short, get a blank score and go from there. Make it your own. Don't try to copy anybody else.
When you teach the suites, in addition to talking about the punctuation, the commas, the periods, the breathing, do you talk about voices as well, conversations? On the page, it all looks like one line. That's what I think students sometimes get confused by.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Again, it depends on which suite and which movement, but you can think of it as a whole orchestra and trying to figure out which instrument is which line in the music. And I think actually that's especially clear in the fugue of the Fifth Suite, when it's really amazing what he's managed to do with just one instrument, but you can see the different instruments, different voices coming in and out. So it can be different instruments having a conversation, so it's not just one person going through that journey. You do have to think about the voicing and figuring out what is actually part of the melody, what is the accompaniment, what is the harmony, what that harmony actually does, because if you just play the melody, you're not quite understanding where the piece is going, what is causing tension, and in which case, where you want to take time, how you want to build up the phrase towards a peak, if you're going to hold back or give more. And I think dynamic range is also something that I try to encourage people to look at. I think it's very easy, especially when there's no markings at all, to just stay in the middle. And that really doesn't tell the story. It's definitely not a hero's journey if you're constantly just wandering around in the middle. So really exploring the whole range of the instrument and all the different colors that we can create. Sometimes you also want to explore allowing the cello be a cello in the sense that we need to make sure that it can resonate and that we're not constantly, pressing to get the sound, and we don't have to because we're not really battling anybody else. Something that Parisot would say, the cello is the most miserable instrument. I think any Parisot student will recognize that phrase because we can't be heard. As soon as you have a piano behind us, we get lost in the piano part. A violin soars all the way above us. We're not battling anybody. So we really can actually explore that whole dynamic range and let the cello be the cello. You don't have to force the sound.
Have you played with the modern Baroque bows, or do you do that with your students? Because I really learned to approach the suites differently by trying a Baroque bow and then later gut strings as well.
Yes, I have a Baroque cello in my studio at the university, as well as Baroque bows, and I do let the students experiment, as I did as well, to see how it is different to create the sound on that instrument. That does influence how I approach playing it on a modern cello. That said, I do play it on a modern cello. And there's also the 5-string instrument for the 6th suite, for example, which changes it a lot. There's different challenges. And again, I don't actually use those. I didn't use those for the recordings. I use my cello with regular strings. But knowing what that sound was like, knowing how you actually get that sound out of the instrument is an important part of trying to figure out what you want to do with it. But that said, if somebody wants to come and play it with a cello with an amp or electric cello, I do have a carbon fiber cello myself as well. It's just a different kind of sound. Playing it on those different instruments might then influence what you do, whether it is the Baroque cello or the modern setup. It's all part of the experimentation and trying to find what you want and the sound and your own voice there. Yeah.
It's such amazing music that it does work, whether it's on a modern cello or a Baroque cello, even a viola or carbon fiber instruments. There are many different versions, especially of the Prelude to the First Suite. How many recordings came out during the pandemic? That was the favorite cello piece for the pandemic, I think. And still, I'm not sick of it.
It's because of all that exploration that we're not sick of it. Imagine if we only had that one, and this is the way you have to play it, right? Then during the pandemic, the need and desire to communicate that people had is one of the amazing things that came out of a very difficult time. I think every musician tried to find an outlet, way to communicate. My husband and I started a little series on our front porch. My husband is a double bass player, so every Friday afternoon we did a little concert for our neighbors, whether they wanted it or not, because they couldn't go anywhere.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Sort of like Lindley and Dragonetti.
Yeah, we did some Rossini and Bach.
I wanted to ask you about your forthcoming book. We spoke a while ago, and I don't know if it's already out. I don't want to miss it.
It's not out yet. I'll definitely let you know. That's actually extending my doctoral research on Parisot and his teaching methods and how to nurture creativity and artistry. That's something that I am working on converting into a book, and I'll definitely let you know when that's finished and available. He had a lot to teach us about teaching. He was an incredible cellist, but he was a bit of a maverick. It's something that I think is worth people to be exposed to and know about. I do have another album coming out in a few months, actually a couple. They're both related to a theme. I talk a lot about our own voice. It's very important for me to make sure to give voice to people who have been suppressed. I have one album coming out of musicians that were suppressed during the Holocaust. It's called Forbidden Voices. On that album, there are a few pieces that are world premieres that have never been heard before. What I try to do with that album is not just make it Holocaust music. People think it's all sad, depressing, but I take the music that these composers wrote. Some of them are composers we know as Hollywood composers. They're the composers that wrote the soundtracks for a lot of famous movies that we know. So I put those things on there as a kind of a juxtaposition to their art music that they wrote as well. There's some really interesting things on that, and it's very important for me to give a voice to people who lost it. Another CD that should be coming around a couple of months after that, it's the Robert Schumann and Clara Schumann. I have works by both of them on this recording, looking at women composers, giving Clara the place that she deserved, given the fact that she was such an incredible pianist and composer. She didn't write really for the cello. We have a few pieces that were written for violin that we play on the cello, and I also did some arranging of other pieces that she wrote. So there's some world premieres on that as well, along with the Schumann Cello Concerto, which is a fabulous piece. That should be out mid-year as well.
Fantastic. Well, closer to time, maybe we can have another conversation and we can go into more detail about those and your book as well.
When you were asking about the advice to students. I was just thinking that nothing is sacred, and the way that we make discoveries is by taking risks. My advice is to question everything, take risks.
I'm so grateful for the conversation. It's been very enjoyable.
Oh, thank you. I've really enjoyed it too.
Thank you for listening to the Cello Museum Podcast. You can find show notes and related materials at cellomuseum.org. If you'd like to explore unaccompanied cello repertoire with us this summer, join Jennifer Kletzel, Erica Lessie, and me in Bethany Beach, Delaware for the Bethany Beach Cello Fest, August 9th through 16th. Details and registration can be found at cellomuseum.org. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe and share it with a fellow cellist.